Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast, where we highlight minority business owners and founders, and we use this platform to shed light on their entrepreneur journey. Welcome, everybody, to the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm the host, Kenny Groom. I am excited to have Shambria Williams. She is the executive director of The Right Kind of Black Girl, which is a Los Angeles-based nonprofit organization with the mission of cultivating sisterhood by empowering women and girls of African diaspora to lead, innovate, and serve our communities. The Right Kind of Black Girl aims to create social systems free of gender, economic, and racial barriers where women and girls have equitable opportunity to economically advance. Thanks for joining us, Shambria.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right, I wanted to kick things off with you, telling folks a little bit about your background and how you got to this point where you're now leading this great nonprofit.
Sure. So I was basically in social services well before I knew I was in social services. I was like one of those kids who just always stuck up for other people. So I know everybody know this. We used to have like bagging sessions with our cousins, right? If you like, you know what I mean. And I had some cousins that were less fortunate than others. And I had this one cousin that would roast you so bad to where you really felt like you wanted to cry. So he was at one of his roasting sessions with one of my other cousins. And, immediately I used to always be the one to kind of step in and be like, hey, stop. The advocate, shall I say. So I've been in a nonprofit sector, well, all of my life, so to speak. I spent 8 years in corporate America, and that was enough time for me to learn, what I didn't want to do for the rest of my life. I worked in accounting as a supervisor, and through my experience in corporate America, led me to my nonprofit journey. So throughout that time, I just felt like I didn't want to work for anyone else's bottom dollar in their businesses. And throughout that time, I was called, I had to deal with a racial situation, feeling like a number or a body. Some of those experiences stuck with me throughout my career. I can recall one time where two colleagues of mine left a book on my desk. And when I came into office I found that binder on my desk. It was printed on the back of customer receipts. And when I opened it, it was a story about how I was birthed from monkeys on my desk, flipping through. And I still keep that book today because it's a reminder, some people, sheep's in wolf's clothing, shall I say. But going through that experience led me to go into the nonprofit sector. Like I said, I was working in corporate America for about 8 years, decided, that space wasn't for me, given all of the hardships that I had to experience and endure just trying to do my job. And so as a result, and for me, I've always worked full-time, went to school full-time. So throughout my corporate career, I went to, Chaffee Community College, got my associate's degree while working full-time in social work and political science, then moved to Cal State LA, where I still, again, was working full-time, going to school full-time in political science and sociology with an emphasis in law. And throughout my master's program from USC, I obtained my master's in social work. And that was the kind of pivotal point. When I finished my bachelor's degree, I decided I wanted to work in the nonprofit sector, and have been within the field for about 6 or 7 years, helping others in various ways. So I'm really proud of the work that I've done and excited about the work that is to come. And then working in the nonprofit sector, I thought I would get away from the racism, from the Black tax, from all of those things we as Black people have to experience. Because I felt like these are people that want to do good. They want to help people, right? And it was interesting because when I flipped to the nonprofit sector, I was going through my master's program, and I was the only Black girl within that executive level team. And I was Black, I was young, I was female. Need I say more? It was a struggle in and of itself. This particular nonprofit had a number of women who were empty nesters, and basically they kind of raised their children, and now they wanted to get back into the workspace. And so even though I was working there for 6 years, or in the field for 6 years, some of the experiences I had, being in corporate America, having a seat at the table and not really having a seat, if you know what I mean, working 10-hour days while going through a master's program, trying to play politics with population of people that I at the time wasn't quite equipped to deal with some of the issues that were happening, because not only was it a racial issue, it was also a class issue. So, I stem from, generational poverty, and those that I was working with in my immediate community, they stem from a background of wealth. So, sometimes it was like I was speaking Ebonics to them, so to speak. So throughout that time, I was stressed out working in that environment. I essentially was experiencing the Black tax, experiencing being shushed in meetings, being treated like I didn't have any emotions or things like that. And after experiencing that environment, I was looking around for mentors or someone to give me some sort of guidance on how to handle these type of situations. And I looked around and no one looked like me. So just kind of pivoted and decided to create a nonprofit around professional racism and things like that. So that's a little bit of my background in the nonprofit and corporate sector.
I appreciate you, sharing your story there. Very powerful from you. Highlighting, us having those interactions as kids, like you mentioned, like bagging on each other. Kind of, we called it ranking as well growing up. Just like kind of, having that camaraderie, telling jokes on each other. But then you kind of get to kind of the adult world, right, where you had that experience where somebody, they left that book on your desk and that kind of stuck with you, and you still keep that to this day. I appreciate you sharing, keeping it real, because these are some of the stereotypes, that exist in the workplace. And like you said, that professional racism, like, I appreciate you, positioning it that way, because, it ends up being in a professional and a work environment, right? Some of those things end up being kind of implicit and more covert, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those things don't exist, even in a space like the nonprofit space, where, Absolutely. Like you say, the premise should be to help uplift people, right? And that's what one would think, but it's interesting that you still deal with that, in that environment. And, all that what you said right now, it kind of took me back to something that you actually posted a while ago on your page. It looks like you posted it in October, because you've taken all those experiences, and I want to read one quote from you. This last sentence in this quote that you posted online, where you state, "I've made it my life's mission to illuminate the pathway to true unfiltered freedom." And so, as I think about, what you just said, what really sparked the idea? Like, what was that moment? Like, what was that situation where you said, this is the purpose? Here's why, I need to create the right kind of Black girl as a nonprofit organization.
So, I mean, it definitely was that experience going through graduate school, working full time, not just at grad school, but also, in my workspace. And just a lot of the experiences, code switching being one of them, you know, always having to police myself about how I speak, how I look, how I act, you know, who's going to judge me, who's looking to judge me, making sure that I double check all of my emails multiple times before sending them, you know, also just coming to a space where I couldn't really be myself, you know, and the stereotyping, you know, not wanting to be, if I'm boisterous about my beliefs or about how I want things to operate within the organization that, you know, kind of my realm that I oversee, you know, not feeling like, you know, I'm either too loud or too aggressive and so forth, or if I'm too timid, they walk all over you. And so having those different experiences going into, you know, meetings where I'm with my colleague and we're working on a project together, but I can't even get a word out in those meetings. Or, you know, before I make a decision, having to check through or check with 5 or 10 people. When you come up to work, I mean, and that's, I think, is the biggest issue, you know, with Black women. When you look at Black women, there's almost in every corporate environment space, there's always at least one within that mid-level, whether it's right below the chief or executive level, the director level, you know. And so essentially that policing and that stereotyping that you have to do internally, it takes a toll. It creates a stressful environment. And, you know, we as Black people, I feel like we code switch so much. When do we ever get the opportunity to take off the mask? When do we ever get the opportunity to just be ourselves? You know, and in not even in a professional environment, but also in a personal environment, you know, some of these things where we have other nationalities or races treating us a certain way and we can't even speak up, because if we say something about it, then it's a situation where it's like, oh, well, you're being racist, or you need to say it this way or that way. And for me, it was a pivotal time because I was just fed up with my environment. I was fed up from code switching. I was fed up for having to do essentially like 3 jobs, including the self-doubt and the self-check-ins and all of those things. And those started to transpire into, you know, how I spoke, you know, the type of self-esteem I had, you know, going into professional spaces. I knew I was qualified. I knew I was educated. I knew all of the answers. And, you know, going into my environment, seeing that, you know, here's some other person, let's call them Jill, who, you know, got their job through nepotism, you know, is not qualified, but and loves to but her nose and everything that I'm doing, you know. So it was a fed up moment for me. And when the spark, I was working another 10-hour day in the office, you know, and something clicked in me and said, you know what, I can't be the only person experiencing this. And so in social work, you know, when we talk about the work that we're doing, if you see a need, you know, most people will say, well, somebody should start that. And we say, we will. Mm-hmm. So kind of that's what I did. I said, you know, I'll be the spark to light the match if it gets people free from having to do all of these extra things that no one pays us for. And I think it's very relevant to today's society with our white counterparts. We've learned to live in their environment. We've learned to code switch. We've learned to, you know, not be seen and feel, you know, just sit at the table and be quiet, not have opinions about things. And what's happening to now, I think, in today's society is that we're being more vocal. We're not saying, okay, we're tired of code switching or switching it up, you know, every time you guys come in the room, or feeling like we have to police ourselves. We're not doing that anymore. And so I think the others are kind of like, well, who's this new person? This person was already here. You know, it's just a matter of the fact that we started to actualize our things and use our voices to make that change, because we do a disservice to ourselves when we have to code switch or try to work 20 times harder just to get, you know, half of what another person of a different race has. And only to find out that it's nothing, the stuff that the issues that they have has nothing to do with our work experience, our education, our quality of life. And you see this with Black women where we become career students. You know, when they tell us that we are not enough or we're not educated or what have you, we keep going to school and getting all of these degrees, only to turn around and hear, once we got these degrees, oh, you're overqualified, or you're not the right fit, or whatever the case may be. So my goal is really to say, you know, get free. We are enough. We are dynamic. When you look at us, we contribute a lot to the community and also to corporate America, the non-for-profit sector, all of the sectors. And I truly believe that an investment in Black women is an investment in Black communities. So in other words, we are the juice. We just need to come together and collaborate on some things to make the change that we want to see. So I guess that's a long-winded way to answer your question.
No, that was great. I want you to, use this platform in the best way that you see it. And from what the statement that stuck out to me the most, that resonated the most, was "We are the juice." That's quoted everywhere. You guys mark my word. And so, you had this spark moment, right? Where you had this idea, it clicked, and you wanted to put the time into it. I wanted you to touch a little bit on how you started this from a meetup, right? And you got some validation from the conversations that you were having, with African American women through that meetup experience, and kind of tell us a little bit around how that has led to the services that you now provide through the nonprofit.
Sure. So, as Kenny mentioned, once I got the spark and I said I can't be the only one to experience it, I registered on Meetup, and our first Meetup event was October 2018 with just a few ladies coming together and giving them more information about my vision, and then also hearing their experiences about some of the things that they've had to endure just being Black and working in corporate America. It reminds me of one person that was able to share their story. They were a part of Human Resources Department, and apparently they were given a number of people to lay off, and they knew it was racially charged. And when that person spoke up, they lost their job too. And that started with an entire, depressive state. And, she ended up coming to one of the meetings that we have under Queens Building Queens to talk about owning your space in corporate America. And it was a powerful moment because I had a therapist on deck, and it was a sacred space where people could share their different experiences. We've had situations where, these women are essentially overworked, they're stressed out, having to deal with Bill and Bob and find the proper way to respond to Bill and Bob, and so forth. So it's been quite a challenge. So once we opened up the space and we started on Meetup, I created these events. First events that we had was Queens Building Queens, where I invited entrepreneurs out to essentially give people the game on how to start their, go into entrepreneurship, how to own their space, whether or not to code switch. So we started a number of different, events. We, from real estate to stock markets and investments, because wholeheartedly, when I thought about, the right kind of Black girl, immediately I was like, unapologetically free, and we get Black women free. And how do we do that? We do that through living a life of wholeness and economic advancement, period. Because I believe at the end of the day, why are Black women enduring these type of environments is because they financially need that support, and how much greater would we be? It wouldn't be an issue to find and shop Black if more more women came together and got into that entrepreneurship sphere, and not only looking at it from an individualistic approach, but collectively. So the idea behind Queens Building Queens was, hey, we're going to introduce you to entrepreneurship, economic advancement, and we're going to introduce you to a team of women that might have similar interests, that hopefully wants, through consistency and through cultivating relationships, that maybe that relationship will turn into a business partner. Maybe it'll turn into just a really good friend that you can connect with when you have you're dealing through trials and tribulations and things like that. So essentially, you know, really to kind of sum it up, the right kind of Black girl was advocating for the betterment of Black people through the acquisition of generational wealth, reduction of health disparities, defiance of stereotypes, rebellions against trauma, the traumas of racism. And as we grew and grew, the right kind of Black girl warped into this holistic approach to things, because at the end of the day, there's so many statistics that we're fighting up against. You know, with Black women in the U.S. are typically paid 61 cents for every dollar paid to white men. The suspension rates are high. I don't even need to touch on the health disparities. When you look at the data and you look at Black people and where we're sitting in terms of, you know, the entire fitness and nutrition and all of that, heart disease, stroke, cancer, we're all number one on areas where we shouldn't be. When you look at racism and mental health, 1 in 10 Black people experience racial trauma. Some folks don't even understand what racial trauma is or what post-traumatic stress disorder is. And, you know, sometimes when you're not educated about those things, you don't even know what's happening or what's going on with you. You just feel, you know, depressed or hopeless. And then also just looking at the entrepreneurship sphere, Black women-owned businesses increased by 164%. However, Black women-led startups have only received 0.0006% of the total tech venture capital fundraising. So the right kind of Black girl, we wanted to change all of that. We wanted to kind of level the playing field and inspire greatness through cultivating a sense of community and holistic support. To kind of give you an overview of, you know, how we got started and what warped into what. And so now we have 4 core values, which is our freedom, our wholeness, economic advancement, and our tribe. You know, and I'm just like to add another one, which is our legacy, because what are we doing this for at the end of the day? So that gives you a little bit of an idea from, you know, meetup up until now.
And you know, all those things that you touched on, again, you're dropping gym after gym after gym. You probably could talk like another 10 minutes, I know, at least, probably even longer, about just the different things that you're doing with it, because like you touched on it a couple of times around the wholeness, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you want, you know, African American women to be whole. Like, I'm actually on the website for the listeners, and, you know, I can go from fit for the culture. There's a section up here as well, like a book collective, you know, that mental space, melanated mamas, like this is really like the true picture. You're really trying to show people, here's what the true picture of an African American woman is. And it's all these things. Absolutely. Right? It's not just like you can narrow it down to 1 or 2 kind of focal points, 1 or 2 kind of topics right now. Like that idea of like being your whole self, it's like very vast, right? So you taking that on, you know, I commend you for that, because there's so many different ways, right? You can look at it. Right. Yeah, there's so many different ways. But like I think on the back end, what's really unique about what you're doing, like you put that wholeness first, but then on the back end, right, you say that economic part, right? That economic part is like very important. And it's something that a lot of times we got to balance, like, you know, a job where we have our whole self, where we can be our true self, versus the money. And right, in a lot of instances, we feel like for us to get the money, we got to like maybe come down a little bit on being our true self. Absolutely. And you know, that's a constant battle. It's not just, like you said, that's not just something for the African American women. That's going to uplift the entire Black community. The all minority kind of founders are still juggling that big kind of topic of how do you balance yourself along with, you know, making sure you're padding your pockets the right way, because there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. So you touched on like the whole component of wholeness. And so really the right kind of Black girl is owned, ran, operated by, for, and by Black women. So a lot of the women who are running, who are chairs of these different programs are started off as members. And so, you know, some of the things that we were doing touched them in such a way that they wanted to do more for the organization. And so we really started thinking like, okay, what are the issues that Black women are experiencing that's keeping us, you know, tied down or weighing us down? And how can we create programs to support them in living a holistic in life, you know, bringing your whole self into this space. And we have a number of people, guest speakers, who have came on and shared and dropped gems to our community. And it's just amazing. So I'll tell you a little bit about each one of the programs. Like I said, Queens Building Queens was our first program. We talked about entrepreneurship. And that was really started out from, you know, trying to give Black women the game, trying to equip them with all of the different things that they need in a professional sphere and an entrepreneurial sphere. And doing that through accountability, because we have so many people who say they want to be entrepreneurs, but they're not consistent in what they want to do. They're not accountable. And so the goal was, with Queens Building Queens, building out through these multiple touch points, these multiple interactions, building, cultivating relationships amongst Black women so that they can economically advance together. So when you look at the different programs that we offer, it's all about unity and how can we do things together. So Queens Building Queens is focused on professional development and entrepreneurship. Revolutionary Black Girls, which is led by Michele Andrade, amazing sister. And that Revolutionary Black Girls was around, you know, advocacy, community advocacy, and giving back, because, you know, we believe in lifting as we climb. So as we are, you know, Black women in that C-level or, you know, executive level, we should always look back to provide support. And on top of that, pushing the needle forward. There's so many issues that are affecting Black women, you know, especially what's happened recently with Breonna Taylor, and the level of homelessness that we have, you know, Black people being, you know, one of the major, you know, races that are homeless or that are experiencing health issues and so forth. And so Revolutionary Black Girls was started as a way to advocate and to give back through civic engagement, to give back through empowering members to do more within the community. So we have Revolutionary Black Girls. Fit for the Culture is amazing. You know, every one of us have fitness goals, and like I said, the health disparities within the Black community is amazing, is unbelievable, to be perfectly honest. And on top of that, you know, as a Black woman, you know, for me personally, I was working full time and, you know, spending an hour in traffic to work, an hour and a half from work. Then when I get home, I'm tired, I'm beat, I don't feel like doing anything else, you know. So Fit for the Culture was started, you know, to really get us moving and get advocating. We have a group of women that do step challenges, that put on nutritional based events. One event that we have coming up is White People Food. It's about, you know, demystifying the stereotype around healthy eating. You know, I know all y'all Black people who are listening, y'all heard somebody done said, oh, that's white people food, when they looked at kale or something else. So it's a little bit of tackling those other stereotypes, right? About healthy eating and what that looks like, and that it can be tasteful, you know? So that's Fit for the Culture. We have Divine Wellness, which I love this program because it's all about mental health. It's about socio-emotional support, healers, yoga, yogis, and also just understanding the history of how did we even get there. So right now we're reading Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome and processing that book in doses, to really understand the structural things that are at place. But we take it from a herbologist level all the way to, just mental wellness. And we have a dynamic group of women there, one being a clinical therapist who can support through various workshops, projects that we do. Inner Beauty was started about Black women and our, I guess, the fact that people want us to subscribe to whiteness or white westernized beauty standard. And so what we've said with that is like, we need to heal all of those issues, us saying that, people are depicting Black women either against each other in a sense with the dark skin versus light skin, or, that we aren't beautiful. And at the end of the day, we just know facts is facts. That's just not true. So Inner Beauty was basically started to encourage self-esteem, encourage self-confidence inside and out. That's why we call it Inner Beauty.
I heard
that beauty starts within.
Can you hear me, Shambria?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, one thing I like on the beauty piece, one topic that just it seems like this is a topic that people are having more and more conversations about in 2020 is the idea or the subject matter of hair. Like just the idea of you being able to wear your hair right, people not it should be kind of obvious not to touch like specifically a Black woman's hair. I'm not sure why people would touch a Black woman's hair, because I know I would not, because I know better. But just I've heard like crazy stories about somebody just like, oh, you got a ponytail? Oh, let me touch it, and it's like just
don't do that. Don't do that. Because it's the novelty of Black women. They know that we are amazing, we're beautiful, we're dynamic. And, sometimes they treat us like a novelty, like we're not human. And, oh, let me pet you. I'm not an animal, So I think my hair grows out of my head, it looked just like yours in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah. And it's crazy that they had to pass the Crown Act, saying that you can't discriminate based off of hair, like literally. So, I mean, it's crazy. And right now with Black women having a huge spotlight on us, with Kamala Harris being VP, Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B was WAP, at the end of the day, we were already Black girl magic. The world is just kind of catching up to that.
I like everything. I like everything that you just said. And, as you've built out, you're getting incredible support just around the different initiatives, the different, services that you're providing within the right kind of Black girl. I want to ask you a question just around in terms of running the business, right? Running this, this is a nonprofit, but it still is run as a business. What's something that you've learned throughout the process that you wish maybe you would have learned, earlier on in the process that maybe, would have propelled the right kind of Black girl a little bit quicker, or would have just maybe given you guys a little bit more momentum?
Yeah. So for me, I would have to say having patience first and foremost, working with Black women and dealing with all of the emotional baggage that can come with that from a professional and a business standpoint is a lot. So for me, running a nonprofit sector, I would say if I had some mentorship, someone that could give me the game of here's the direction that you want to point your nonprofit in, us figuring out this curriculum, figuring out the programs and things like that. That took a lot of time, a lot of dedication and things like that. And we're just now getting to that part. But for me, I think just someone to walk me through the process, like I said, I stem from generational poverty. So not a lot of people in my immediate family or in my family in general own businesses. I didn't see any entrepreneurs in my growing up, and none that were not to mention any that were successful. So seeing that just as an example would have been great to have, most importantly. And also from a nonprofit standpoint, looking at how to encourage people to give, because we know that, Black people, we've been able to do a lot with a little. But, whether or not we give and how we give, it can be a challenge to figure that out and to allow people to be able to process those things for themselves and how they want to show up for the organization. Because like I said, we encourage a community approach, and learning the ins and outs of that community approach on the various different levels of running a nonprofit organization, I think could have been helpful to learn ahead of time. So just the process, looking at what are the other avenues that you can use, because as nonprofits, we always have to do more with less. So how to maximize your resources and minimize your cost.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. And you've done a lot, like you said, in this nonprofit space. You got to maybe stretch your dollar a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I think you've done great in terms of building out the team. You really have a full team right now that's really, with your leadership. I know you got a couple board members as well. You built out quite the network. And so that's incredible to see, like you said, in this kind of nonprofit space. You think, all right, it's got to be really, really bootstrapped. You can't do a lot, right? You got to focus on maybe one thing, but just leveraging your network, what you built out over the last 2 years, because you said, 2018? That, did you say October?
Yep.
So it's been what, a little over 2 years. I go down the list of people. Like I was just looking at your team page right before our conversation, and you really got some incredibly talented, brilliant ladies. Like you said, it's all run by Black females, working together, figuring this thing out.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the team of women that are behind me. I don't know if I could have done this work without them. Sometimes, in that entrepreneurship sphere, you oftentimes, feel like giving up. You feel like, oh my goodness, I'm over this. I just want to crawl in my bed sometimes. But it's the women in the work that they're doing that pushes me to do more. And also knowing that there's a need for this space. It's a need to have a brave space for Black women to let their hair down and be able to talk and have intimate discussions and share intimate things that are going on within their family that they have to be responsible for. And in that space, we have a virtual group chat. And so a lot of conversations go on, and people share really intimate things about themselves and their families. And there's validation in knowing it feels good in the validation and knowing that you're not alone in this experience, that you have other Black women that are experiencing the same things, that are having to be the backbone in spite of the backhand. So, are having to support their family, having to work a full-time job, having to experience racial oppression within a workspace. and still, at the end of the day, have a smile on their faces. It just shows the strength of Black women and what we can do and how dynamic we really are. And with the right kind of Black girl, we want to illuminate our beauty, illuminate those discussions, and bring them to the forefront for everybody to have and experience. And I also think that, Black men, where are they in this conversation? Because as Black women, you really, we can't do everything. We need support, just like, with any nonprofit organization, we need support. We're doing the work. And that goes from the entire community.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you. I think that's the perfect segue, because like you said, this year in 2020, right, there's a lot going on, from COVID, the conversations around social injustice, that impact the African American community more so than other groups. And then now we've kind of it feels like we've come to the conclusion or close to the end of the discussion around, the political kind of initiatives that need to go on moving forward with our new presidency. So you just touched on that a little bit, but how have these how have the conversations with the African American women gone throughout 2020? And then I think you touched on it around that partnership with African American men. What are you looking forward to moving forward in terms of the dialogue and maybe the partnership, hopefully, that you hope to see between African American men and women?
So I think first you asked me about the conversations that Black women have been having, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, this election has been a whirlwind. It's been a stressful situation for a lot of us. And on top of that, to have that type of election going on where we're in the midst of a revolution for Black people as it relates to police brutality and things like that. So it's been an emotional conversation. It's been people sharing their thoughts and feelings about, them as mothers having Black sons and the conversations that need to go out. And simultaneously about these allies that have came into the advocacy for Black Lives Matter and things like that, and whether or not they're actually advocates, or are they, just joining in because they have nothing else to do and they're locked down on COVID. So like, what's that situation? I think that there's a lot of conversations that we've had throughout this process. It's been ups and downs, and us with Kamala Harris, first putting in her ticket and her background on as a I'm blanking, the DA within California.
Defense attorney?
Yes. And whether or not people can forgive her for that, because some of her work that she did during that time attributed to the prison boom that we have today. So, I mean, we've talked about that. We've talked about the election. We've talked about Trump. And we've actually, through Revolutionary Black Girls, we did a 30-minute segment on all of the props. So we met for 30 minutes and we all talked about the props, the pros and cons, learned it, and so forth. And so at the end of all of the events we did, people were prepared and they were more educated about the different propositions that were on our ballots. And so not only are we having conversations, but we're having discussions around what can be done, And so it's an amazing time to be a part of the Right Kind of Black Girl. On Friday, we're doing this event called Lift as We Climb, Seeds to Our Sisters, because to provide toiletry bags to homeless women, destitute women within Los Angeles. And so that's an amazing thing. So like I said, we've been doing not only having conversations, but also trying to figure out solutions to some of these problems that's within our capacity. And then as far as the conversation with amongst Black men and Black women, whew, I just have to like breathe that out.
Please breathe it out, but I want to hear it all.
Because that's just like a whole situation. You know, and I actually am putting on an event on December 11th, kind of a roundtable talk for between Black men and Black women. So I'm really excited about that event. But essentially, Black women are feeling like, and I don't want to speak for all, but the women that I've experienced, you know, are in my organization, the sentiment that I get is that Black men are missing from the conversations. They are missing from the advocacy. They are missing from the unity, you know, and I think that it's putting the burden on Black women to be everything to everybody, because we don't have equal counterparts that are present and that are willing to go in, that are willing to partner with Black women to move the needle forward, to advocate for the Black community and Black people, and things like that. So I feel like the sentiment is, you know, they're missing from the conversation. They may be tied with other things as it relates to external relationships outside of the Black race, or what they have to go on and do. And we understand that, you know, Black men, you guys have the world on your shoulders just like Black women do. But the one thing about Black women is we can't abandon our community because our kids are in that community. You know, we can't, it's not the same as far as the attachment goes between Black men and Black women. And, you know, I also want to give props out to those brothers that are in the community and are doing the work. Shout out to y'all, because we know that those do exist. But, you know, I'm from California, and right now, from what my observations are, Black men are missing from the conversations. They're missing from the community. They're missing from the advocacy. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think Black women just want to know, where are you guys at? Like, we need y'all, you know, like, what's going on? So I think that's a little bit of the sentiment that I get.
Yeah, you gotta keep it real.
Hey, it's the only way to be.
You gotta keep it real. And I think, you know, I was looking at it, you know, just in terms of like kind of the back of what you were saying somewhat in terms of, I think there's, you know, there should be skin in the game right now for African-American males and females. Mm-hmm. When I looked at some of the numbers around kind of wage gaps and things like that, we are really fighting for a lot of the same things in a lot of these situations. When it comes to increased pay, when it comes to that parity with those who we deem as our peers, mm-hmm. You know, in other groups. So, you know, that feedback, you know, it may not necessarily be what we want to hear, but I think you have a good you have a good focus group with the right kind of Black girl, because, you know, when I asked you that question, how are, you know, African-American females feeling about that partnership with African-American males, you really do speak for a group of a strong body of African-American females. So I know you said, hey, in California, that's something that you feel like is in place. But I think for this conversation here, it's good that we hear that as African-American males. It doesn't necessarily mean, to your point, like you say, like we're not doing anything, but maybe there's just different ways to make sure we come together from a community perspective. Because you mentioned, hey, we may be having some of those conversations with different groups outside of our community, but how do we make our community whole? That does need to be a focus for us all moving forward, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, you know, Black men play a central role and part in this moment, in this time, in this sphere. and we need to do it collectively. I think that, it's just, to me, it just feels like Black women are doing more than what Black men are doing, or what we see. And for California, like I said, there's a huge, when we look at the dating scene, there's amazing, dynamic Black women who are educated, who are good people, who are just doing their thing as it relates to all fronts, like a holistic approach to like living life. They're amazing. And yet there's so many of them that are single, so many of them that, are lacking even male friendship, just being a friend, and reaching out and connecting. So I think that there's in different fronts, we're missing Black men from the conversation. And I think that they play a critical role in uplifting us and getting us to where we need to be, because as women, we can't take on everything. It's kind of like Erykah Badu's song Bag Lady. You're gonna hurt your back. Mm. And that's where you get a lot of burnout for Black women. You get a lot of mental health breakdowns, like all of those different things. Is because we're carrying so many different layers of stuff, whereas Black men, they don't have to worry about having a kid attached to them, so per se. But I just think that they just need to be more present and acknowledged and appreciate Black women for the work that we've done, politically, within the community, from a community perspective, and just how we've tried to move the needle forward in what we're doing.
No, I appreciate, again, I appreciate all that. It needs to be said for whatever it's worth, right? And I think, it's not an easy conversation. I think when we talked about some of this stuff before, right, we were like, like, how do you even approach that topic? And this is the kind of topic where you probably just say it, let people think about it. Yeah, just drop the mic afterwards.
Yeah.
Let people sit on it, let people think. And I think we're in a time right now where, everybody who wants to make a change, right? They're all about that action. I think in COVID, it's just been amazing seeing, individuals like yourself, like you have your background, you could just work your 9 to 5, you would have been okay, but you're taking that experience. And during a year like COVID, where it's so easy to just stay at home, sit on the couch, like do the bare minimum.
Right.
You're out there, you're doing extra, you're having extra conversations, you're building out extra products, you're building out extra services. And I think just right now, people are going to take gambles on themselves, is what I like to say.
Absolutely.
And you can't lose taking a gamble on yourself. So you putting that challenge out there. There's some young fellas out there, I know, if you're listening live or to the, recorded episode, step up to the challenge. I know you guys got it in you. Put a ring on it if you can. I got that in there as well. I just want to say that. That's big too. I myself can speak from that experience. That's big.
See, and not enough Black men speak about that experience. That's why I'm enjoying the hashtag Black love and all of those different things, because like I said, it's rough in these streets.
Oh, that's facts. I appreciate you sharing it. Hey guys, I already put it, if you guys can't see it, so, you share so much, right, about what you're doing, the whole journey that you've been on. Again, like, it's incredible.
Thank you.
A lot of the business owners that I have on as guests, one thing I noticed when I go to Google, I tell everybody this, when I go to Google and I type in the name of your business, whether it's not nonprofit, for profit business, and I see you're that whole first page, that is a clear indicator that you've been grinding. And I like to say the right kind of Black girl is essentially that entire first page. And you can kind of see the journey where you've tried different ways of funding, you tried Meetup, you tried different things just get the brand out there, keep that communication going.
Yeah.
And so you sharing your story right now, again, you're touching on topics that are not easy topics to have. But again, that initial idea, and that you touched on this really throughout the conversation, but the idea of wholeness, that's something that we really all can take something from as you are building out your platform. Looking forward to seeing the right kind of Black girl, moving forward, seeing all the great things that you're going to be doing. In closing, though, I want to pass it back to you, Shambria. Let everybody know how they can reach out. They can interact with the brand. Is there anything they should be looking for coming up as we head into 2021?
Absolutely. So, gosh, where do I start? So, in order to connect with us, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Right Kind of Black Girl. Our website is www.therightkindaBlackGirl.org. We have a number of events. Like I did, we do several events a month. We have a step challenge going on where at the end we're going to be doing the turkey trot, and it was essentially focused on getting people moving, especially with COVID. It's easy to sit and lay around in the house. We can't afford to sit back and do all of that. We need to keep moving, we need to keep going. So we're doing that. We're doing an event on this Saturday called Lift as We Climb, Seas to Our Sisters, to provide toiletries to destitute women in downtown LA, specifically in Skid Row. So if you want to donate, you can do so on our website, or you can Cash App or Venmo at The Right Kind of Black Girl. At TRKBG, which is the abbreviations for The Right Kind of Black Girl. I'm also doing an event December 11th it's called King's Highlight, Black Men Speak Up, which is a panel discussion to talk about what we, to talk about and bring Black women and men to the table to discuss unity, to discuss our community, to discuss entrepreneurship, and really to start this discussion of how do we advocate together? How do we unify to collectively push for economic advancement? So that's a number of things. Also on the website, you can order a t-shirt. We have face masks that are coming out, and all of the profits from those sales go directly to the nonprofit to support the programs that we're putting on. So there's a number of ways that you guys can keep up. We do have a blog that we did, and today we posted our first blog post. It's posted on Instagram, it's posted on Facebook, so check that out, comment. And if there's other ways that you want to get involved with The Right Kind of Black Girl, you can contact us through our website or through our social media handles.
Thanks for that, Shambria. Again, thanks for, hopping on, sharing your story. You're doing amazing work. All those events, all those engagements, all those activities that Shambria just mentioned, there's plenty of ways for you to be involved. Like she said, if you see something or you look at that calendar and you see something that's missing, I know Shambria is the type of person where if you let her know, like, it's really going to be a discussion. She'll figure out, how to do it, viable, right, and how to do it.
Absolutely.
So again, make sure I want the listeners to make sure that they reach out, interact with the brand, buy some swag, buy some merch. Let's make sure that we support The Right Kind of Black Girl, because it's the right message right now. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast. Come back again.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Normal podcast. We can be streamed across all major streaming platforms in addition to YouTube. Come back again.